Welcome to the Intentional Leaders Podcast. In this podcast, we explore practices, mindsets, and moments that shape confident, purposeful leaders. I am your host, Cindy Wetland. Today's episode, we are going to have a conversation with Chris Robinson. He is the Executive Vice President of Maxwell Leadership. And if you're not familiar with John Maxwell, well, you have not been around topics that involve leadership because John Maxwell is a guru in this space. He's been around for a long time, has done significant work around leadership. So, this particular episode, we're going to talk a little bit about complacency, which is really interesting. If you've ever felt complacent or you've had people that are in your life or have worked with that are complacent, we're going to talk about how it quietly fuels underperformance. And Chris has looked at this and researched it, and he is going to share the origins of his upcoming book on this topic. So he has developed a 7-step framework that looks at realizing complacency and how to overcome it. I think you're going to find him very engaging and also this topic very interesting. So whether you're leading a team or simply looking to grow, this conversation is going to challenge you to think about success and performance and the comfort zones that we don't always realize we're in. So let's dive in. All right. So I am very thrilled to welcome Chris Robinson to the Intentional Leaders Podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, Cindy, thank you so much for having me today. I am excited to be on here with you and add value to your audience today. And I love the word, intentional. And so, hey, we're going to intentionally add value to people today.
We are. That's our goal. And it's a shared goal. And I love that. I was super excited since you and I met to have this conversation. And we're going to talk a little bit about an upcoming book you're writing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you have a hard copy right in front of you.
Yeah, I
You
do.
want to
I
show
do.
it?
I do. Right there.
From
There we
drift to
go.
drive. There we go. Yahoo. There it is.
Yeah.
All the magic in that. But
Yeah.
you have a big role. You're an EVP for Maxwell's Leadership Certified Team. So
Yeah.
that's your day job. And yet
Right.
you took it upon yourself to write a book too, because you
Yeah.
probably didn't have a lot going on, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, not only in addition to that, I also have 6 kids. And so, I've
Okay, I
got
did not know that.
I got 16-year-old triplets. I've got a 12-year-old and 9-year-old twins. So triplets, twins, and a single.
Seriously?
Right, yeah. So
That's amazing.
we squeezed a book in there. We squeezed a book in there.
Because I didn't have anything else to do, so I
Right.
thought I'd
Yeah.
write a book. I love that. Okay, you're just impressing me more and more every
Right.
moment. Well, but I was so intrigued as you and I were talking about your book, and it explores that concept of complacency. And
Yeah.
here was the quote: "It was a secret place of satisfactory success."
Yeah.
And can you share, I mean, what even prompted you to think about complacency and
Yeah.
define it? And why do you think that's so important to explore?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because initially when I began to write this book, I didn't have any intentions on writing the book. I was actually attending a 2-day conference with a friend of mine, Rory Vaden, who just released an incredible book called Wealthy and Well Known, just hit the New York Times bestseller list. And I was working with him, not so much for myself personally, but to see, hey, could Rory bring this content, this material to the Maxwell leadership coaches and add value to our community? Well, I engaged in the process while I was there, just kind of
Yeah.
playing along. And I'm not kind of a I'm a in the book I even talk about it. I'm a all or nothing person. It's like I got two
Mm,
speed thinking. It's like I'm going all in or I'm not.
yeah.
And we began to engage in the process, and they said, "Well, Chris, what if you were to write a book? What would you write a book on?" And initially, I really wanted to talk about underperformance because I love helping organizations develop leaders. I love helping
Yep.
organizations grow. And I said, I'd like to talk about underperformance. But as we dug in deeper, I said, well, what is the root cause of underperformance? And
Yes.
as we begin to kick around, the concepts and ideas of what really causes underperformance, the word complacency came up. And oh my
Mhm.
goodness, my stomach just dropped and I went, oh
Oh,
gosh. So I went home that night or to the hotel that night and I began just contemplating complacency.
yeah.
And I also began to think, well, where have I seen complacency show up in my life and how did I overcome it? And
Yes.
every area or every instance of life that I could think of where I had some success, it was as a result of following this seven-step framework. So the next morning, I'm sitting on the bench and I write out the seven-step framework of which I use to overcome, these areas of complacency. And I go back in the room, I write it on the whiteboard, and everybody just kind of stops and go, "Oh my goodness, that's it." And so I took it from that point. It took about 6 months from start to finish to write out the entire book and to have that put together. And oh my goodness, I could not be more excited about this book and how it's going to help people overcome those secret places of satisfactory success. So what we find out inside the book is that, the first thing that we have to do is we have to identify areas of complacency. And
Yeah.
typically, when we think of the word complacency, we think of laziness or apathy, but it's
Mm.
really couldn't be further from the truth. It's in
Yes.
areas where we're growing without intention. And so what that means is that, hey, I got really good at something, and then I just kind of let it be good enough. On a scale of
Yeah.
1 to 10, I got to about a 7.5 and an 8. And I was like, oh, that's good. I can do it.
Yeah.
I'm proficient. I can get around it. But there's a gap that begins to happen between when you get good and your actual potential. And so
Yeah.
my goal is to help pull people to their potential and step away from their good. So what we're looking to do is fine tune those areas that are your strengths, those
Yeah.
areas that you've said, hey, I'm pretty good at this, and you really haven't gone back to work on it any longer. And
Yeah.
so when I began to really explore complacency, I realized it was like whack-a-mole. I'm going, oh, why aren't I doing anything here? Complacency. Why aren't I doing complacency? Complacency just start popping up all throughout my life. And I'm going, oh my goodness. If you would call people and ask them, is Chris a complacent person? You'd get no, absolutely not. But that's not the truth because I've got complacency, secret places of satisfactory success, just like everyone else.
Oh, I love that concept. Well, and it is, I think you're trying to reframe an important distinction between what complacency is, because most people would think that's a negative thing, right? It's
Right.
a negative thing that laziness, whatever it might be, but you're saying, hey, no, it's not that. It's so I love the reframe that I'm not being intentional in an area of growth. I'm
Right.
letting
Yeah.
good enough be good enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. And why do you think that's important for leaders right now, today, in today's
Yeah,
world?
I think it's very important because if we go back and we take a look at, some of the greatest people, companies, and even empires, you can point back to complacency being the result of the decline or fall of that organization. If you look at the Roman Empire, they attribute the Roman Empire collapsing because of complacency. If you look at even like some of the best drivers in the world, Richard
Mm,
Petty contributes his decline in his final years of racing to complacency because he wasn't driving it. He thought that if I continue to do the same things that we had already done because we were winning, then I can continue to do that. Instead, he found himself not driving innovation, but driving the same thing that he was doing again. But the list goes on. I mean, if you look at Kmart, if you look at,
yes.
Kodak, if you look at any of these places, these were organizations that thought what we do is good enough, and it
Yeah.
led to their demise. So
Yeah.
today, people need to be aware of it because it's happening inside of organizations all around.
Yeah.
Complacency, it looks like busyness, right? It
Yes.
feels like comfort and it sounds like excuses. Now, I
Mm.
was just with a friend of mine in Romania. I spoke in Romania 2 weeks
Mm.
ago, and I was with a friend of mine that's a speaker and a consultant, and he was sharing with me this brand new way that he was helping, develop company culture. And I mean, it was just like a textbook out of the box. I could take it, go and implement this inside of a company. And then I said the words. I said these words. Oh my, whack-a-mole just came right up. I said, oh my goodness, I see exactly how I can implement this. I see exactly how I could produce income with this if I wanted to work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I wanted to work that way.
Yes.
And I go,
Right.
oh, wait a minute. Those words came out of my mouth and I was like,
Right.
oh my goodness, that's complacency. And then he gave me the excuse, Cindy. He said, well, Chris, as busy as your schedule is, I can see why you wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't I agree with them? I am busy, so what's complacency
Yes.
look like? It looks like busyness. What's it feel like? Comfort, because
Yes.
I don't have to go out and, work really hard at some new, product or service to make my income needs. So I'm comfortable. I don't really have to do that. And it sounds like excuses because, I could just easily accept it as well, as busy as you are,
Yes.
you probably don't need to do this, right? So we have
Okay.
to be on the lookout for this.
I'm having an internal moment of um, awareness, and I'm whacking my own mole because my my marketing director wants me to do something, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think that's gonna work." And oh, and she knows I'm busy too, but
Right,
it's so easy to say like, "Oh, it's not gonna work, and I can't fit that in," rather than looking at the discomfort that I don't really want
right.
to do.
Correct.
Like,
And
why do I need to
right.
add
Why don't you do that? And the work that it's going to require, and you're saying, well, I don't really want to do the work that way. It's what you really say. It's like
Yeah.
things are
Oh,
fine, things are good, you know.
she's gonna listen to this podcast too, and she's gonna know. Like, yeah, she got
Wow.
herself.
Yep.
So, so I love that you had this revelation. You started seeing it
Yeah.
everywhere, and then you developed this framework, and it's 7 steps. And
Yeah.
number one, I think, is clarity. Right? That was the
Yes,
first step.
that's correct.
Framework.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is so foundational? Why do you, and
Yeah.
why aren't we clear?
Yeah. Well, again, it's clarity is the first step because you cannot have what you cannot see. And anytime that you feel busy, anytime that you're not moving in a direction as fast as you want, it's usually because of a lack of clarity, because you've got all this other clutter in your life that doesn't line up with where you want to go. And I think about it, probably a couple of years ago before I hired a new financial advising team. It
Yeah.
was what I was doing at the time was I really didn't like everything's fine, got more money coming in than I'm spending, everything is good. And they're like, well, what's your goal? And I was like, well, I don't really know. I can buy what I want to buy right now. I can do what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
What,
I don't know. But
and
what was
and then the
happening?
person said, "What about those 6 children?" You're like,
Right,
"Oh,
right. Yeah, what about them? They can work. They can work.
yeah, there you go."
But it was I was drifting. I was drifting because I
Yeah,
didn't have a clear vision or something I was driving towards. And not
yeah,
that that needs to be our sole focus is our income and what we're doing, but it could
yeah,
be impact. It could be our relationships. It could be, anything that we want to get better in or we know that we have more potential in, we need to
yeah,
get clear on it. And I look at it this way, Cindy, is that a quick litmus test for our listeners out there is I would imagine that on this particular podcast, there's many that set goals. And if I were to ask, your audience, how many of you set goals at the beginning of this year? Most of them would say, yep, I set goals. Now, here's the litmus test, Cindy, if we have clarity or not. Well, the first challenge I would say is go back and pull out those goals from the first of the year if you can find them. Okay, because for most people, they're scrambling around going,
like
I
somewhere.
I know I wrote them somewhere, but we're
Yes.
halfway through. I don't quite know where those are. But once you find that, and once you got that goal list from the first of the year, the second challenge I have to you is to look at your to-do list from the last 2, 3 days. And
Yeah,
chances are most people's to-do list look crazy in comparison to where they want to go. You
yeah,
see, because they don't have
yeah,
clarity on it, they let it go. And when you have clarity on where you want to go, now everything else falls to the wayside and you can begin to make meaningful, steps and movement
yeah,
towards, with intention, towards the direction that you want to go.
yeah, yeah. It makes so much sense because I think, as you said, we get cluttered with so much day to day that other people want from us or that is expected from us or we think we need to do or focus on. And all of those tasks just add up to our life.
Right.
It's our
Right.
life, which is we're reacting to without being proactive and, as you said, more deliberate around where am I going and are those activities and behaviors and practices aligned with that or not?
Right. Yeah.
So I love that quote. You cannot have what you cannot see. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I love that. So you talked about the initial thought for this book was about underperformance, and that's where you
Yeah.
started, and then it reframed. And you also mentioned that it isn't always about lack of effort,
Right.
but subtle forms of success.
Yeah.
And what are and you've kind of said this already in your own life, some real world examples. How do you see that showing up in leaders and teams? Like, how
Yeah.
would someone know
Right.
that there's missed opportunity? How would based on what
Yeah.
you've work you've done?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so again, going back to take a look at some of the early signs. So inside the book, there's actually a quiz, and whether you have the book or not, you can actually take the quiz. And if you do, you could do that at drifttodrivequiz.com, and that's
Okay.
with the number two in there. That's with the number two in there, drifttodrivequiz.com.
Okay.
And when you take that quiz, it's going to give you some early detection signs, but also in addition to that, it's going to give you some action steps that you can take based on where you are in that area of complacency. But there's some
Okay.
subtle signs when it comes to complacency. The first sign of complacency is comfort. It's comfort. You see, comfort is your baseline, and growth starts with discomfort. When was the
Yeah.
last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you did something for the first time? I had the
Yeah.
privilege the other day of doing something for the first time that was completely outside of my comfort zone, and probably normal to most people. But I mean, I am just the most unmechanically inclined person on the planet. Like Cindy, it stresses me
Me,
out
come on.
to have to fix something, and my toolkit could actually probably fit inside this cup right here. This is how many tools I have, and I call somebody for everything. And I was at the Atlanta airport, and I was early, and so I was like, "Oh, I don't want to turn the car in yet. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just pull into this parking lot right before there." There's a young lady standing there, and she comes up to me. She says, "Excuse me, mister, could you change this? You know how to change a tire?" I was like, "Ooh." No, not really. I said, and to be honest with you, I'm looking around for people, somebody more qualified,
Right.
and I said,
Is there a
well,
better adult around here?
right, yeah,
You're an adult, you're an
you
adult.
know, and I said to myself, I said, well, I can get you started, but I don't know if I can actually do this thing. So I go over there and I end up getting out all the pieces and I end up, getting the car lifted. I figured that out. Then I said, okay, now there's only a couple tools here. There's only this wrench here, so that's got to work. That looks like my Allen wrench at home that I got a bunch of. I said, I could do this thing here. I get that off and I get the tire changed. But I'm sweating the entire time, not only because it was hot, but because I am stressed out going, can I get this girl back on the road? And I did it. But my comfort level is duh. Hey, let me call somebody. You don't have anybody in your contact list? And
I know.
so a first sign is comfort. The second sign is that you're busy, but you're not challenged. You're busy,
Oh,
but you're not challenged. And that's where routine has replaced reflection. Routine has replaced reflection, meaning that you're not really considering, the things that you're doing. You're in automatic movement and you're busy, but it's just not challenging to you anymore. Another sign could be that you say later more than now.
yep.
Well, you know what? Maybe I'll do that marketing thing you were talking about a little bit later. I don't really need it right now. That
Right.
might be a sign. Delay is a quiet form of drift. It's a quiet form of
Okay.
drift. Delay.
Okay. Darn it.
Right? Okay.
Dude,
Okay.
I'm drifting. I was just like drifting. I don't even want to take the quiz. I'm like, hold on.
Right, right. You got to take the quiz. You got to take the quiz. We're going to help you out there. The
No.
next way that you might be able to identify this is if you've lost energy for what used to inspire you. You've lost energy for what used to inspire you. So
Yeah.
numbness is a symptom of being stuck.
Mm.
All right. And
Hmm.
so, in that one, I talk about an example in the book of how I was over in Cambodia. I flew over to Cambodia, the other side of the planet, and I was going to go speak to a couple thousand people. And there was only two speakers on the agenda, John Maxwell, Chris Robinson. I mean,
Whoa.
this is a speaker's dream, right? Now,
Yes.
to this, Cindy, we go to meet the president of Cambodia before that training session. We go to meet the president. So, I mean, I'm feeling good. I mean, we're just
Okay.
feeling things are good. And, I go up on stage and I deliver the talk and things are going wrong. And, my remote's not working. I'm speaking with an interpreter, but I get through it. I'm a pro. And at the end of it, there's a lot of people telling me how great it was, how it impacted their life, how good it was, and how they needed that. But then I went to dinner with John Maxwell and I sat down with John and I said, "Hey, John, could you give me some feedback on my talk today?" Now, this is John Maxwell,
Yeah.
number one leadership communicator on the
Yes.
planet. And he says, "Well,
Yes.
I'd, I'd love to share some thoughts with you." Well, Cindy, he shared not one, but 10 plus items that I need to work on. And in fact, the entire table, there was about five other people. They thought it was a brainstorming session all of a sudden. And all of a sudden, they're giving me thoughts and ideas of what I needed to do to improve. But
Okay.
what happened was I went back to look at that list, and there was nothing on the list that I did not know or did not do in the past. But because I've given so many talks and I speak every single week in some capacity, I
Yeah.
did not prepare for that opportunity the way that I used to prepare to go speak for free at a Rotary Club for lunch. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it ignited this fire inside of me. But another sign that you might have would be that you avoid friction and feedback, because comfort actually becomes your cage where you like to
Yeah.
stay.
Yes.
So if you want to take a
Yeah.
deep dive into where you're at on complacency, check out Drift, the number two
Yes.
drive, quiz.com, and you can find out where you might have some complacency in your life, but get some actionable steps. So it's about a 5-page report that it kicks out for you to kind of help you identify it, as well as give you some steps to move forward. And
Yeah.
that's whether you have the book or not. I just want to
Yeah.
help people.
Yeah, of course you do. And I mentioned to you pre-taping that the book is in my Amazon cart because it is coming out. Like how does one get the book, or can you get it before it comes out on Amazon? I mean, I do
Um,
everything on Amazon. I know.
Yeah, so you can't get it before then,
Okay.
unless, I could probably get you one, Cindy, because
Right.
you're my friend, you're on my list, and I got a box of some in my in my house, but they won't actually be out for release until September 2nd. So I would encourage everybody, go ahead and pre-order it now. Every
Yeah.
single pre-order counts. We're trying to hit all the top book list out there, and so every order done before then actually counts. And so I'd
Oh,
appreciate that very much for anybody that's listening.
yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. Well, and I think too, as you've continued to emphasize that how this is showing up in our life is very nuanced. And as you were going through, and I'm taking frantic notes, but I can't catch everything. But the comfort and the routine replacing reflection, and am I doing things later rather than more? I lose energy, all the things.
Right.
Um, and I think sometimes, and that could be because I'm in a job that isn't challenging me, right? Or I don't really
Yep.
feel purposeful anymore. It could be a factor of where I am in my career.
Yep.
I kind of look at myself and I'm like, I'm in the I'm in the later chapters of, his
Oh,
Cindy
it's getting
Wetland
cozy.
book.
It's getting cozy over there, Kim
It is
Cindy.
getting cozy. It is getting cozy. And a lot of our friends and, family are retiring. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
want to retire yet. But
Right.
then how does that look? And what does that mean to me that
Yeah.
do I start kind of,
Yeah.
um,
Well, you do,
yeah,
because you don't want to retire, but you don't want to work the way that you used to work.
yeah,
And
yes, it's true. But then I look at myself like, why not?
Right.
Right? Why not? Why can't I try
Right.
new
Yeah.
things? Why can't I do? I mean, during
Right.
COVID, when we all had to pivot and shift, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to do a podcast, and I guess I'm going to
Right.
learn virtual training. I guess I'm going to do
Right.
all these things, right?
Right.
Why can't I keep going?
Right. Well, and again, that's what, I talk about the rumble strip inside the book, and that's what you're hitting. And so
Yeah,
COVID was a rumble strip for you, just like we have on the highways whenever you begin to drift, not because you're lazy, but because you're familiar, you're not paying attention. You
right.
hit that side of the road, and there's this little rumble that
Yes.
picks you up out of that drift. COVID was a rumble strip for you that was unavoidable. But
Yeah.
when something like that isn't there, we hit these rumble strips and we either wake up and say, you know what? I need to be intentional and get back moving forward, or we just let that rumble we get used to it and we say, okay, and we ignore it and we just kind of continue to stay in that drift. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
today's a rumble strip for you, Cindy.
I know it is too. It's kind of freaking me out. I just wanted to talk about you, not about me. I want to talk about your great ideas, not my
Right.
deficiencies.
Yeah.
But you're really getting at, and I think you are all about intentionality too, and being deliberate and being focused, obviously, just by the nature of what you do, but in this work. So how would you encourage people to be more intentional in their thinking? Like how do people figure out that they've just hit a rumble strip, for
Right.
example?
Well, I mean, you know it. I mean, it could be any number of things. It's either a hit financially, it's a dip in a relationship, it's again, all those early signs of discomfort that we just went through. Those are
Yeah.
all symptoms and should be, okay, a rumble strip for you. It should be something that should wake you up. But again, comfort is the baseline and you're comfortable, well, it might not be a rumble strip for you if you're not talking about it or thinking about it. You're just going through that day-to-day
Yeah.
routine. And
Yeah.
so you have to take an intentional, introspective look at the areas where you say, hey, you know what? Where am I being complacent? As we've been talking and we've talked about many
Yeah.
different areas, I would imagine that several people listening have said, ooh, yeah, I could be doing more in this area of my life. I could be doing more in that area of life. So just like it's awakening for you right now, it is the same way that it would work for every individual listening. It takes intentional reflection to really kind of evaluate where we are and what we want.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's the discomfort of realizing that, like I'm having these moments right now. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
so how, as you think about that seven-step framework, and I don't,
yeah,
I'm still learning what this
yeah.
is. How do people get from clarity to that action?
Yeah, well,
And
there's a lot
is
of
the
steps
seven?
in between there. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of
So
steps
is
in
that
between there.
the
Yeah.
framework?
Yeah, that's the framework. So we'll
Okay.
walk through the framework and I'll share it with you. A lot of people
Okay.
say, well, Chris, we don't want to give them the whole 7 steps because they
Right.
got to get the book. No, I'm going to give you the 7 steps because I want you to know the 7 steps, but
Oh,
to get practical application, resources to get
yeah.
through these 7 steps, you'll get the book. But the
Yeah.
second step is gathering. Okay. So
Hmm.
once you
Okay.
identify what it is that you want, you have to then go and gather information on that specific area. So, and again, I'm giving you different examples of where this works because I want people to see that
Yeah.
it works in every area of their life. So I'll give you an
Yes.
example of me becoming a certified teaching pro pickleball player. Okay. So it worked for that, right?
You have time to exercise?
I'm a certified teaching pro. Not, and I'm not an actual pro, but I'm a teaching
Okay.
pro in pickleball. And but what happened was is I began to play the game, and
Yeah.
in the first day, I said, "Oh my goodness, I love that sound of that ball. I love this game. I'm gonna learn how to play pickleball." So the first thing I did was I was clear that I wanted to learn how to play this game. The second thing was I began to gather information. And so,
Yeah.
whatever area that you want to grow, you need to gather information through books,
Hmm.
videos, audios, courses, and conferences. Okay.
Yeah.
Called the BVACC. All right. So, you want to gather, and that's being intentional to collect and gather experiences and resources on a specific topic. Okay. Whatever that topic in your life is, whether it be your health, relationships, etc. The
Yeah.
third step is filtering. Filtering. And this
Yeah.
is where you're separating the useful from the distractions. Okay, so you've
Yeah.
gathered all this information, and I know I got some good gatherers listening in right now. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I gather. But here through the filtering phase, this is where the magic is because filtering allows for us to participate in what's called layered learning. All right,
Mm,
so think about this, Cindy. Have you ever been, I keep putting you on the spot here, but you're being our sacrifice for the listeners. All right. Cindy,
thanks.
have you ever been reading a book on one topic, watching videos on another topic, listening to audios on another topic, taking a course on another topic, and attending a conference on another topic? Has that ever happened in your life?
No. No, I'm highly, highly deliberate and focused. Yeah,
Right?
I know,
Well,
but that's true when you think about, well, we have so much access right now, more than we've ever had today to
yeah,
resources in, as you said, so many different mediums. And I
yes,
think that is overwhelming. So
yeah,
I love the idea of being purposeful about that, what is going to be practical and helpful and useful to me, and what is just noise. And there's
right.
so much noise
It is.
to,
It is. And so when you line up those books, videos, audios, courses,
yeah,
all that stuff, when you line all that up on the same topic, you layer that learning and you actually gain knowledge faster and move towards it faster when you filter properly. But if, you fall into the trap of that thing that we all have in our hands right here,
yes,
I mean, this can take you any which way. That phone can
yeah,
take you any which way.
for
And so
sure.
you need to layer that learning and filter properly. The
Yeah.
fourth step is guidance. Guidance. So what I did after I, gathered information, I filtered information on specific shots and what I wanted to work on. By day 4 of playing pickleball, I was in a clinic and I had a coach. Okay.
Oh,
Step 4 is
wow.
guidance. That's getting
Yeah,
a mentor in the
yeah,
specific area that you want to grow.
yeah,
And nothing can save you more time, energy, or money than a coach or a mentor in the specific area that you want to go. Again, remember, I'm saying the word specific, okay?
yes.
Because a lot of times we'll go out and we'll seek mentors and we think that one mentor solves for all of our life.
No.
But
Right.
we want to be
Agreed.
very specific in the mentor and the guide that we're reaching out to and learning from so that we can stay in that lane and in that topic. Uh,
Yeah.
the the fifth step is relationships. That's getting around like-minded people, and so as a result of doing one-on-one coaching with the pickleball coach, I also participate in group trainings because that allowed for me to get around other players that were playing
Yeah.
and serious about it as I was. I did
Yeah.
this exact same thing with speaking. I did this exact same thing with coaching. I do
Yeah.
everything I do. It follows these steps. And then now step 6 is action. Okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
step 6 is action. And that's doing something with the clarity, the gathering, the filtering, the guidance, and the relationships that you have. Because if you don't take action on what you're learning, it just doesn't matter. And then the seventh step is evaluation. And that's taking a honest reflection of your progress through self-assessment, and that thrusts you right back into having a clear vision of where you want to go. But if I
Yeah.
had to shortcut this, and the way that I teach this to my kids is that you need three things to grow in any area of life. You need knowledge, you need experience, I mean, you need to do something with that knowledge, and then you need a coach or a mentor. And so
Hmm.
there's a two-step framework that I teach that you say, Chris, I don't need the 7 steps. I know what I want. How do I move forward? Learn a little bit, do a little bit. Learn a little bit, do a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
move and do that. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, your progress will be huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the idea too that you're creating not just the pathway, but you're creating a support system at the same time to help you succeed with those
Yeah,
relationships, with the guidance, with the coach, with the people that are going in the same direction you are. So you're building in a support system, and I think that is so important when we reach times of stress or problems or obstacles and we don't know where to go or how to do it. And
yeah,
then that just creates frustration and stagnation,
right.
in our
Yep.
ability to go forward. But when we have people surrounding us that are, as you said, like-minded or
Right.
passionate about the same thing, it makes it all more collaborative, but more fun too,
Yeah, it
when we
does.
get stuck,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like we got the secret ingredients to an amazing recipe. But I think your book is going to bring, I know your book is going to bring everything to life in a very rich and meaningful way because the stories that you told me previously and today bring a lot of depth to the concepts that you have. So even though people have the 7 steps, I think it's important to have the examples and how
Yeah.
this worked for you and what
Example.
barriers you also encountered along the way, which I
Yeah,
think is,
and the great thing about the book is, the way that I always teach as a speaker is I want to give you practical application. So
yeah,
I give
yeah,
resources in there. I give questions in there that you can take to reflect.
yes. Oh, I love
So
that.
it's a book for reading, but a book for reference that's going to
Yeah,
be a guide that you go back to
yeah,
time and time again to help
yeah.
yourself get from where you are to where you want to go.
Yeah, I can tell that, you are an educator and teacher first. You're a
Yeah.
coach first, right? And then you happen to write a book. But I think that's an important distinction when I think about people that write books and their concepts. Like here's a bunch of concepts. But
Right.
when people weave in and here's some prompts and here's some resources and here's some action, then I know it's that spirit of teaching and education and coaching that is built in so that people don't have to work as hard to figure it all out. So I admire that about you, is I can tell that you're an awesome teacher, educator. So
I love it.
so tell me what's one thing that as you were researching the book, as you were putting together, what was one thing that surprised you or that you didn't really expect it to come up or to write about it, but then you thought this is really important?
Yeah. One thing that stood out that really surprised me. I don't know if there was anything that really surprised me in the research of the book, because it was more reaffirming of what I believed and the framework. So there was nothing that was like, aha, I got you. If I did
Yeah.
have a surprise of putting this book together, it would be the difficulty of actually producing the audiobook.
Oh, really?
That was
So
the
that
biggest
was a
surprise.
growth opportunity.
That was a stretch. That was a growth opportunity. I'm a very just like regimented, um, you know, time person. And I love
Yeah.
time management and I love being on time and efficiency throughout the day. And they put 2 days on my calendar for the audiobook. And I was 2 days, like, no, this isn't going to happen. So I skipped the first half day and I show up on the first half day and I begin to read the audiobook. And the first question I asked my producer was, why in the world is this on here for 2 days? He says, well, it takes 2 days. I was like, nah, we're going to get through this. I
Yeah.
began to
Yeah.
start the audiobook and about an hour in, I go, oh, this takes 2 days.
Oh, really? So why did it take so long? I don't have no idea, like the
Yeah,
creation.
well, you're reading the book word for word, but you're reading it also in context, and you're also reading, so you can turn a question into a statement, or you're reading it and you insert and make up words, or at least I did, and then you're reading for so long that you start hallucinating. And there was one part that we were stuck on. And I'm like, the producer's like, that's not in there. I'm like. And I kept reading the same sentence and saying something else different. He's like, that's not in there.
Like, oh, really? It's in
Yeah,
my imagination.
it should right. Yeah. And so it was just, I had never done that before. It was the first time
Yeah.
and a great experience, but it was definitely a surprise of how, the difficulty of it. And you're reading for, several hours. You're just
Yes.
reading your words. And so it was amazing but fun. So I can't wait for people to hear the audiobook.
Right. I would want to hire someone who's got a beautiful, eloquent voice and just like pretend you're me.
Right.
Like say that really nice. And don't
That's an
swear,
option.
Cindy. Like, what?
That's an option.
Like,
That's an option.
oh, I love it. Well, you've been on quite a journey, and I know. I mean, when we started this meeting, you said, "I'm sorry I'm late," and you weren't late. So I know you're very oriented to to time and being on time. And I want to be mindful of your time. But
Sure.
I just so appreciate you taking the time, one, to just get to know, that we got to know each other before this interview, but how freely you're sharing your journey and what you've learned and tying it to so many examples of life. And when I think about my audience of leaders, leaders doesn't mean I'm a manager in a big business. It could
Yeah.
be I'm a leader in my church, I'm a leader in my family. I want to make a difference in people's lives. And when we step back and look at, are we pushing ourselves to be our very best? And what's
Right.
interesting about that concept too is I hear a lot of times when people talk about the best coaches they've ever had, it's one that pushed them to their potential and they didn't even realize there was more potential. And that's
Right.
really what you're saying is, can you examine that yourself
Right. Yep.
and
That's
look
correct.
for the opportunity to grow in a way that maybe you're not, and there's more potential there. So
Indeed.
well, thank you, my friend, for sharing all this. And I'm gonna go take the quiz. I know it's gonna be bad. I'll be like, oh, but I'm on a rumble strip apparently,
Right.
and this is a good opportunity to really rethink that, in my own
Yeah.
life
I
and
love
career
that.
and the
Yeah.
choices
Well,
I'm making.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Cindy, for having me. Truly an honor to get to know you. I love your heart, your passion for people and adding value to people. And so
Yeah.
thank you for just being a purpose-driven leader.
My honor to be with you today, truly. So thank you, Chris. So wasn't he cool? The next time that I think I'm too busy, I'm going to think about Chris Robinson traveling all over the world, speaking constantly, working with thousands of certified trainers and leaders for the Maxwell organization. And not only that, writing a book in 6 months and having 6 children and learning how to change a tire. This man is impressive. I had such an engaging conversation with him even prior to this interview, and I was so excited for him to share his message with all of you. I hope what you gained from this is some insight about what complacency really means, and that it isn't a negative thing in terms of we're lazy or we're, deliberately stuck in something, but it's really about considering where are we almost plateauing in a way without consciousness where we're not achieving our full potential. And I think about that for myself right now. I'm like, am I at a point that that is happening? He talked about the rumble strips, and COVID was a rumble strip for me as a business owner and as a consultant and as a teacher. And now we're kind of out of that. I'm more comfortable with a lot of the things I'm doing. Where am I really stretching myself? So I hope that's a question that you will also ask yourself. And I'm super excited to get his book from Drift to Drive, and I hope it intrigues you enough to check it out as well. So until next time, think about where you are in this sphere of potential, and maybe what area of your life might you want to explore and get a little bit more clarity on. As always, if you enjoy this podcast, please, please, please share it with other people who are like-minded. As he said, we got to build our community, right? And then also leave a review or comments. I love to hear from people about what they enjoyed or what they want more of in these podcast episodes. This is for you. So whatever is most beneficial and valuable, I want that feedback. Thanks and have a great week.